Hi, it's Kathy. And I chose a card from the Messages from Your Animal Spirit Guides by Stephen D. Farmer. The card I chose is Panda. It says, create a sacred space for yourself in your home and or place of work. And that sacred space is the place that you meditate and pray. And my sacred space is my room. It has objects in it that are contemplative and just make me feel very comforted. My books, picture of Jesus, my Japanese dolls, my karate trophies. There's a picture of Reverend Moon and his wife who screwed up, Hak Jahan Moon. In that picture, she didn't screw up yet. So I don't know if Hyung Jinim would approve that I have his mother in a picture next to his father, his mother who betrayed his father. But anyway, that picture is precious. Even though Reverend Moon's wife Hak Jahan screwed up royally. She really screwed up so badly. She's running his church. She has all his properties. And she's not following her son, who he appointed as his heir. So he is the second king, and she is not honoring that. So anyway, here we are reading the autobiography of Reverend Moon. And after he was in prison camp, after crossing the Imjin River, we traveled by way of Seoul, Wonju, and Gwangju to Busan. We arrived finally on January 27, 1951. Busan was filled with refugees from the north. It felt like the whole country had gathered there. Any accommodation fit to live in was already occupied. Our tiny place had barely enough room to sit. Our only option was to go into the woods at night, keeping warm as best we could, and then return to the city by day to look for food. My hair, which was kept short during my prison time, had now grown back. My trousers, mended from the inside with cotton from a sleeping quilt, had become threadbare. My clothes were saturated so fully with an oily grime that raindrops in heavy rain were not absorbed into the cloth but simply rolled off. Almost nothing was left of the soles of my shoes, although the upper part was mostly still there. I might as well have been walking barefoot. The fact was simply that I was the lowest of the low, a beggar among beggars. There was no work to be had, and we had no money in our pockets. The only way we could eat was to beg. Yet even while begging for food, I maintained my dignity. If someone refused to help, I would say in a clear and confident voice, "Listen, if you do not help people like us who are in need, you will have great difficulties if you hope to receive blessings in the future." People would give when faced with such thoughts. We took the food we gathered this way to a flat area where we all could sit together. Dozens of people like us ate in such places. We had nothing and even had to beg for food, but a warm friendship always flowed among us. Once, once in the middle of a day like this, suddenly I heard someone shout, "Look here, how long has it been?" I turned to see standing before me Duck Monom, a friend from my days in Japan. Duck Monom had become my friend for life back then, after having been so moved by a patriotic song I sang. Today he is one of Korea's most prominent architects, having designed the Sejong Cultural Center and the Lot Hotel. "Let's go," he said, as he embraced me in my wretched clothes. "Let's go to my home." By that time, Duck Monum had married. He lived together with his family in a single room. To make room for me, he hung a quilt down the middle of that room, dividing it with one side for me. On the other, he slept with his wife and 2 young children. Now, he said, tell me about your life lately. I always wondered where you were and what you might be doing. We were close friends, he said, but you have always been more than a friend to me. Did you know that I always held you in great respect? Up to that point, I had never shared my heart candidly with any of my friends. In Japan, I went so far as to hide the fact that I often read the Bible. If someone came into my room when I was reading, I would quickly put the Bible away. But in the home of Duck Monum, I shared my story for the first time. I spoke throughout the night. I told him of my encounter with God, crossing the 38th parallel, starting a church, and surviving Hungnam prison. My story took a full 3 days to tell. When I finished, Duck Monum stood and knelt down before me in a full ceremonial bow. What are you doing? I asked in shock and surprise. I grabbed his hand and tried to stop him, but it was no use. I could not. From this moment on, said Dukmanum, you are my great spiritual teacher. This bow is my greeting to you as my teacher, so please accept it. He has been with me ever since, both as my friend and as my disciple. Soon after this, I found a job on Pier 4 in Busan Harbor. I worked only at night. With my pay, I bought bean porridge at Choryang Station. The hot porridge was sold with a rag wrapped around the container to keep it hot. I always held the porridge container against my body for more than an hour before eating it. This helped to warm my body, which froze from working throughout the long, cold night. I found lodging in a shelter for laborers located in the Choryang neighborhood. My room was so small that I could not lie down, even diagonally, without my feet pressing against the wall. But this was the room where I sharpened a pencil and solemnly wrote the first draft of Wali Wonbong, the original version of the Divine Principle. I was financially destitute, but this was of no importance to me. Even living in a slum, there is nothing a determined soul cannot do. All we need is the will. There is nothing a determined soul cannot do. All we need is the will. And this is really inspiration for me because I am so afraid to try to teach my family divine principle, and I don't feel qualified. But if I have the will, I can do it. I only taught my dad one thing about Adam and Eve. I taught my dad about the fall of man, but I haven't gotten in yet again because I don't know if I know enough of divine principle to teach him without reading to him. Anyway, I pray to God that I get the courage to witness to my family. Where there's will, there's a way. You can do it. Whatever is God's will for you, you can do it. And thank you all for listening.